Hello, everybody. Welcome to Josh Dell'Aria's Musical Escapades. My name's Josh Dell'Aria, your host, and today I'm excited to bring to you guys another awesome musician that I found last year out of Austin, Texas. His name is Roger Sellers, and he goes by the stage name of Bayonne. Over the past couple of years, Bayonne has made quite the slew of EPs and remixes and singles, and he also has made 2 albums, one of which came out last year called Drastic Measures. Now, I think you could classify Bayonne as an electronic musician, but his style also really borders on alternative, so it makes his music sound very, very interesting and really different for the genre, in my opinion. So as I was listening to Bayonne's new album, I really enjoyed this song called Kind, and I'll tell you guys, I think that this song is just really, really interesting. The song ended up getting a top 20 nomination last year. Obviously, it didn't make it, but it was still interesting enough that I couldn't deny it the opportunity. So I think you guys are going to like this. I think you're going to find it interesting. It's quite unlike probably anything that you guys have ever heard before. So I'll go ahead and play it here again. The song is called Kind, it's Bayonne. Alright, I want to start with this intro because I find it interesting how this unfolds to start at the very start here. cool things about this is that the buildup is so slow to this that it's funny because like you're kind of just plodding along to the song and you're just kind of like listening for it and listening for it, and then all of a sudden it hits you that it's been building up this entire time. But you don't really hear it until it gets to the point where it's that loud and you get into the song and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's really well done to kind of sneak that up on somebody and not and try to hide it and try to keep it a little bit concealed. Gives the song a little bit more mystery. Allows it to. Okay, as we get into the verses here, I want to point out a very important chord that Bayonne is using. So the second chord in this sequence is actually really important. So I'm going to try to explain this to you in the best way that I can, music theory-wise. So in just about every chord progression, or I guess I would say most chord progressions in music, you'll hear some variant of the one chord in the song, which is using the root note of the scale that's being used for the song, which in this case it's F major, so it would be an F major chord. And then eventually it will at some point usually get to what's called the 5 chord, the dominant chord. It's kind of more like a question mark or a comma type of style. So that sounds like this. That's a C chord in this case. And then that 5 dominant chord resolves back easily to the 1 chord. Now, within those chord progressions, a lot of musicians will use a lot of different kinds of chords to color their sequences. And so they can use something along the lines of, say, a 4 chord in this case, which would be B flat. So there's your 1 chord F, 4 chord B flat, 5 chord C, that's your dominant, and back to the 1 chord F, if I can play it straight. So another thing that that musicians can do, and I'll explain this, this is actually what Bayonne is doing in this case, is they can actually use, instead of this, say, 4 chord, for instance, they can actually kind of color things and kind of go out of key a little bit. And one of the tools that that's basically at their disposal that they can use is what's called the 5 of 5 chord. It basically means the 5th chord in the key of the 5th note of the musician is using. I know that sounds a little confusing, but what that means is that since in this case Bayonne is in the key of F, and that 5 chord would be a C, they could use the 5th scale of that C key and build a major chord off that, which is a G in this case. And usually that would come before the dominant because it resolves down to the dominant. And then you can use that to resolve back to the major key. And so that's what Bayonne is doing here. He's basically starting off on an F, and he goes off to that G, the 5 of 5, and then C, which is the 5 chord, and then back to F. And that's all he's doing to color up that verse. Now, the sound that it makes actually kind of muddles the key a little bit. Your mind can kind of get confused by that 5 of 5 chord that he actually is weaving in and out of C and F. And it's a little bit tricky to kind of pinpoint because the quality of the sound really lends itself a lot toward that C key most of the time, especially since F is one of the chords in the key of C. So basically what I'm trying to say is that Bayonne is in the key of F pretty much the entire time, but by using that 5 of 5 chord, it's convincing your brain that he's actually possibly in the key of C, when it's absolutely not true that he is. And it's that 5 of 5 chord that is having that effect on your brain. Now, what this is also doing is it's also making that 1 chord sound less resolute. So normally that tonic chord, the first chord of the key, is supposed to be like a grounding chord. Like once it's been played, you know you're in that key. And what that 5 of 5 chord is actually doing is it's actually taking away a little bit from that resoluteness of knowing that you're right in that key. And that's why, in some ways, it almost sounds like this song is in C major instead of F major, when it's not. Another thing that stood out to me in this song were some of the flourishes that Bayonne used, and the one that stood out the most was this one that went into the second verse. Yeah, normally I probably wouldn't put as much attention on flourishes, but I think in this case, with this particular genre in electronic music, there are not a lot of musicians who really do this type of thing well. And so, when I hear somebody using it in this genre, it really tells me that they do have a really good ear for the music, because they're figuring out something that's more decorative, something that involves a lot more beauty. And I think the reason why I would say that it's not really important in most other music is because I guess in that sense, I would more so expect those musicians to have more of a sense of aesthetic beauty in a song. Um, so I guess it may be a little bit of a a little bit of a double standard, but I really do appreciate that Bayonne puts this in here, and it's very well played and very well done. Okay, lastly, I do want to pull out some of the lyrics here because I think some of these lines are really powerful. So here's what I would say. This is usually the mark of a really good vocabulary because it's not necessarily about particular words that you put in the song that sound all glamorous and special and sparkly, but it's really about the context you put them in. So it's really more about your phrases and like how some of those words fit together and things like that, and like the legit like sentences that you use or phrases in that case, how that all impacts the listener. I think is really the important part of a really good vocabulary. And I think Bayonne did a great job of that. Alright, that is all I have on this song for you guys. Thank you all for watching. If you guys want to see more of Bayonne, if you like his music, if you want to check out more, you can go on over to his website, bayonnemusic.com. And of course, I'll link on the social media site. And as always, if you have some awesome music you want to share with the world here, or if you know anybody who has amazing music and you want their music to be heard, please let me know. You can email me here at joshdell'Ariasmusicalescapades@gmail.com, or you can send me a message to my Facebook page, facebook.com/joshmusicalescapades, or you can leave it in the comments here below. And one way or another, I will give it a listen and it may end up here on a future episode. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, go make great